Go for a drive in this when your ex gets a new name. I'm Jay, and this is Modern Motoring. Welcome to the 2025 Volvo EX40, formerly named the XC40 Recharge. Not really a lot new here except for the name, but it's been a while since we've had one of these on the channel. And if you are looking for a subcompact electric vehicle in the luxury segment, stick around because we'll go through some perks and quirks and Irks. We'll get some baseline numbers as to what this actually has, run through pricing and competition, and that should wrap us up. So the EX40 runs off an 82 kilowatt per hour battery with the twin, which is the all-wheel drive version, which is what I have here. It's 402 horsepower, 494 pound-feet of torque. If you option yourself for the single, which is rear-wheel drive, that dips down to 248 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. On the range side, the single motor comes in at 476 kilometers, and the twin motor comes in at 418. So, well, kind of like every other EV out there, you opt for all-wheel drive, you get lower range but more power. But if you opt for single-wheel drive, whether it's front or rear, you get more range but less power. As far as charge time goes, on a level 2 at 50 kilowatts, you can go from 10 to 80 in 68 minutes. If you find a level 3 charger, that can take you from 10 to 80% in 28 minutes. And the maximum capacity here for charging speed is 200 kilowatts, so not too bad. Standard safety, before we jump into the perks, quirks, and Irks, includes blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, rear collision warning, and traffic sign recognition. Let's start off with the perks, and the biggest one for me is going to be the drive feel and drive quality. It is such a smooth and energetic drive, and I know that all electric vehicles have that instant boost of torque. There's something about the way the EX40 just drives and handles that makes it one of the better ones that I feel there is in the modern market as far as the subcompact luxury EVs go. Stays really, really flat, handles twists and turns extremely well. I know it's a little taller of a vehicle, but it still has superb handling. It soaks up all the bumps. It's extremely quiet. You hear hardly any road noises bleeding in. So I give the EX40, formerly known as the XC40 Recharge, full marks on the drive feel. When I started off in the industry in 2012, Volvo made some of the most comfortable seats, and that still rings true here in late 2024 as a 2025 model. The seats in the EX40 are absolutely wonderful, and if there was a way for me to make my office chair one of these chairs, I absolutely would. You get standard wireless charging, so that's definitely a perk. You also have the Google built-in, which is the way Volvo is going now. I did touch on the excellent driving dynamics, but I will say that the benefit of a subcompact vehicle, whether it's an EV, luxury, or mainstream, is it's extremely easy to drive, it's extremely easy to park, very maneuverable, and that's what the benefits are of picking something with a smaller footprint if you are deep into urban life. You know, you don't take a lot of road trips, you're pretty much staying within the city, maybe the suburbs for most of it, but any kind of urban conditions, the EX40 shines so brightly. Cargo measures in at 410 liters with the rear seats up, and you get a frunk. I was going to put that in the quirks pile, but it definitely needs to be in the perks pile. You don't really get much space. There is a divider that's built in, but if you need more space, to take that little divider out. Underneath that is your tire fill kit because there is no spare tire here. And yeah, it's handy, and I know why all EVs cannot have a frunk, but I always get a little giddy when I find EVs that do have a frunk. On to the quirk side of things, there is a little plastic piece stuck onto the driver's side of the windshield. It's a ticket holder for your not parking ticket, but the ticket you get when you pay for parking or some kind of parking pass. So that's a bit of a quirky thing, and I imagine it makes it a little difficult to clean the entire windshield. The rear view mirror in the center is extremely close to my face. That's just because it's positioned closer to me because of the module here in the center of the windshield for your safety systems. Next quirk is the sit to start. There is no start stop button. It's not the first time Volvo's put this in their vehicles, and a few other vehicles have this as well. But basically there's a weight sensor underneath the driver's seat, and if the key fob is within proximity, you just sit down and the little message on the instrument cluster says, put your gear into reverse or drive and apply the brake pedal, and then off you go. A couple of exterior quirks here. There is no badging aside from the EX40 on the entire vehicle. Previous Volvos had the single motor or twin motor some kind of letter number combination as far as what's beneath the hood, but all we have here is EX40. Next up is the hood release, and it's usually somewhere in the middle of the hood, but here Volvo has it on the far right side, which would be the driver's side if you're looking straight at it. I realize why I can't be in the middle, because a lot of the front cargo space slash frunk parts are there, so it's a bit of a quirky, interesting thing. And the last thing is going to be on pricing. On the core trim, which is your base trim, to go from a single motor to a twin motor is $3,550, but on the Plus and Ultra, the second and the highest trims, it's only $2,500. So a little quirky as to why getting all-wheel drive and more power costs more on the base trim than the other two. On to the Irks. First one up is the rear door, and it's designed in such a way that it's thinner at the bottom, but it really tapers out at the top. And if you have somebody new getting into the vehicle's rear seats for the first time, depending on their height, it may tap their face with the door, or something a little more severe. Hopefully not. For a luxury vehicle that does offer wireless charging, it doesn't offer wireless CarPlay, and price range goes from 60 to around the mid 70,000s Canadian. And I personally don't like wireless Apple CarPlay. I know Steph does, and a lot of people do, so I think it's a big miss to not have wireless Apple CarPlay here. You've got to use the screen for almost all of your HVAC controls. The rear defroster and the front defroster are physical hard touch buttons, along with your hazards here, because, well, they have to be by law. And your seek, track, and volume knobs are physical, but everything else goes through the screen, and it's a tiny portion. I'm going to say it's 5% of the screen, and the font is small, so you've got to have a lot of accuracy in changing whatever HVAC controls you want. Yes, you can set it to auto and just keep it that way, but I know I've never really liked the having to go through a screen for all your HVAC controls. Something to keep in mind if you are looking at this vehicle. My tester is spec'd with the 360 cam, but whenever I put it in reverse, the default setting is that the infotainment screen gets split in half, with the bottom half being the camera and the top half being sensors, and you've got to do a couple of touches on the screen itself before you can change that half and half to a full top-down 360 look. And it's a nitpick, sure, to some people, but even if the default was 75% of the screen being the backup camera and the top 25 being an image of the sensor, I think that'd be a little more advantageous. As it is, the screen is fairly small by modern standards at 9 inches. More on the infotainment system, and a touch back onto the driving side of things. Yes, there's one pedal driving here, and you have it for on, off, or auto, but again, it's a couple of touches through the screen to get there. There's no multiple levels of brake regen like we have in, say, the Genesis vehicles here. And I realize that some people, most people actually, will just keep it at whatever that one setting is, whether you are a fan of one pedal driving or not. But I think the heavy reliance on doing almost everything through a touchscreen, it's too much of a reliance on it. And if anything happens to the screen, you're kind of blacked out for that portion of it. Let's go through pricing and competition to wrap things up. 3 things. These are Canadian prices. These are all MSRPs with nothing added. And in Canada, this is eligible for an up to $5,000 federal rebate. So with that, first up is the core rear-wheel drive, $59,950. You tack on $3,550 if you want to go to the twin/all-wheel drive version. The Plus is the mid-trim rear-wheel drive, $68,000, and then you tack on $2,500 to go to the twin/all-wheel drive. And at the top of the list is the Ultra rear-wheel drive, comes in at $72,450. And just like the Plus, you add in $2,500 to go to the twin/all-wheel drive. So it's fairly competitive. Let's go through competition. There's the Audi Q4 e-tron 45, which is the same $59,950 for the base MSRP, up to 463 kilometers of range. So the Volvo has a little bit more at 476. So it is at 13 more kilometers here. Next up is the all-new Mini Countryman for 2025, up to 420 kilometers of range. So a pretty big gap between that and this at 476. MSRP is very close to this at $59,900. So it's $50 less than this and the Audi Q4 45 e-tron. And finally, the GV60, and you're going to say it's not really a competitor because of the price being $73,000. and having up to 399 kilometers of range. So that is a 77 kilometer difference. But with Genesis, they have their all-in-one pricing, and there's a performance version, which is, I think, $7,000 or $8,000 more than what it is here. But out of the box, it's pretty good for what the Genesis offers. I'm not sure people will see that there's $13,050 worth of additional value between the GV60 and the Audi Mini and this. With that, it's going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions on the 2025 Volvo EX40, let me know in the comments. I am more than happy to engage in respectful conversation, and I invite you to join our social media community. We're on all the major platforms, so feel free to join us there. And if you haven't subscribed, I invite you to. I'm trying to get to 20,000 by the end of the year. I'm at almost 19, so I think it can be done. With that, again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.